Hi, I'm RAJI AHSAN. I'm a teacher, a writer, and an actor exploring human connection. I believe that we are a culture that is unfortunately plagued by fear and disconnection. And on this show, I want to ask, how can we connect again? This is the RAJI AHSAN Show. On today's show, I am very, very excited to welcome guest and friend, Lucie Arnaz. She has become like a mentor to me and a guide in many, many ways as I embark upon my career and trying to build what it is I'm trying to build. On today's show, she talks about a little bit of the history behind I Love Lucie, starring her parents, Lucille and Desi Arnaz, and how the show came to be. And specifically, she lays out a few of the characteristics of her father, Desi Arnaz. And there are fantastic lessons available for those of us trying to build anything in our lives within the life of Desi Arnaz. The first one, keep asking why. If you're trying to build something and you're getting no over and over again, or you're getting some sort of block on the way to building the thing, keep asking why. Don't give up. Ask why. How can I solve this problem? How can I solve that problem? Don't lose your vision. Ask why. And then the second thing that she said about her father, Desi, is that he was brave as hell. Now, in a former episode of the RAJI Show, I talk about courage and how courage is not a feeling. I believe the same about bravery. Bravery is not a feeling. Bravery is an action. It is an action in the face of fear, nerves, anxiety, or something uncertain. There are great lessons in this conversation with Lucie Arnaz, and I hope you enjoy it. We go back to the beginning of I Love Lucie. Is it true that I Love Lucie exists because your parents wanted to save their marriage? Is that true?
Well, I don't know if the words save their marriage are too strong, but maybe not too strong. They were living apart a lot because he was a band leader and had a great career on the road. She was a movie star, little star. And they virtually almost never saw one another. And their dream was to live in their house in Chatsworth and have a family someday. But as my mother would say, it's hard to have a family by telephone. So they really were working super hard to find a way, some way. At one point, she talked to Bob Hope about, is there any way I could try to keep Desi home? And Bob gave him the directorship, musical directorship of his radio show, the Bob Hope Show. So that was good. Then Dad got his own radio show called Tropical Trip on CBS. So that was good. It was all done in Hollywood, but he was still getting offers to go on the road. And my mother was doing a radio show called My Favorite Husband, which they wanted to move to television. And that's when she suggested that perhaps Desi Arnaz should play the husband on the radio show, that he would be very capable and they'd be great together, that they worked together well. And she used to go out on the road with him from time to time, do little skits. And it was a big deal trying to convince the networks of that. Huge, big deal.
This is a story that we've heard so many times, right? They said they're not going to believe that you two are married. And she was like, well, we are.
Right? Yeah, well, it was a big deal because I would get, back in the day, you didn't see a lot of Latins or people of color or other nationalities on American television, right? Yes. Yeah. Hello.
Thanks. Thank you, Desi. Thank you, Desi.
Yeah. And so him, even though he was just Cuban and didn't necessarily look dark-skinned per se, he still was Latin. And that in the 50s was tantamount to a white girl being married to a black man. I mean, it was like, you're going to show they called it a mixed marriage. You're going to show a mixed marriage on American television? We can't do that. And they had to prove to the audiences by going back out on the road together and doing a show together that people would indeed accept them as a couple doing funny stuff because they really were a couple. And that worked. And so they did get I Love Lucie. But yes, it was created the way it was created. And because the 3-camera technique, filming in front of a live audience, was created because they wanted to stay in California and have a family and not move to New York where they said they were told they must go in order to get the quality of the show. And they said, no, we don't want to go to New York. We want to stay here. We can't stay here because you have to shoot it on film. We get bad quality if you shoot it here. You need to go there, otherwise you're going to get kinescope. And he goes, well, why can't we do it on film? And they said, no, you can't, because Lucie works in front of an audience and you can't shoot film in front of an audience. And so he said, well, why not? You just can't. Okay. Understand? It's a no. What do you know? What is it about no you don't get? But he just kept asking why. Well, how come that is? And well, what are the rules that prevent it? And he went about changing each and every one of them and satisfying the regulations so that they could bring an audience into a studio, shoot film live, 3-camera. And they changed the face of television because of that, because it actually created the fact that you could keep those shows and run them as reruns years later.
Right.
But so in fact, the rerun was actually invented because of that technique.
So they didn't set out to change the face of television. They set out to work together.
Exactly.
They were
motivated. To not move to New York. It was like, I don't want to do that. How can I stay here? Well, you have to do that to stay here. Well, how do you do that? I don't know. Well, you find out. That's right. One of the things I loved about my dad. It was because it was him that was saying all of this, that he maybe being out of a revolution in Cuba, and Cubans are very, resourceful and funny, and they don't take things personally. They have a good sense of humor about themselves. And he just kept saying, well, I lost everything once before. I might as well throw it all in again. He just was brave as hell and willing to try anything. He always said, there are no stupid questions. They're just stupid people who are afraid to raise their hand,
You said two really important things. He kept asking why.
Yes. Why not?
He was brave as hell, willing to try anything. It's
almost like if somebody said at NASA, can we go to the moon? And they go, I don't know about that. Well, why couldn't we? Well, we don't have the whatever.
Right.
Well, what would it take to get well, we don't have the money. Well, how could we raise the money? You know what I mean? It's like everything that they say is why. You go, okay, well, what if we solve that problem? And then what if we solve that problem? And pretty soon people go, well, yeah, duh, if you could do this and this and this and this and this, then he goes, okay, I'll get back to you. He goes and tries to solve all those problems,
Okay,
that's how you get further than anything.
That's a lesson for me. Truly, that's a lesson for me right now.
Yes, for all of us, absolutely.
Because as I try to build whatever it is I'm building in my life, there are all of these things standing in the way, because right now I'm in the guest room of my mother's house, I lived in New York City for 10 years by myself, and now I'm 31 and in the guest room at my mom's house, and I'm thinking where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? And there are all of these things in the way, and I think, well, I could do it Desi's way. I could do it Desi's way and go, well, I can address that, and then I can address that, and just go one issue at a time.
One wave at a time, he used to say when he was driving boats down in Cuba. The guy who taught him how to drive a boat said, Desi, slow down. One wave at a time, buddy. There's the next one. Let's find out how to get through that one. Oh, here comes another one, but it's coming from a different angle. Well, don't worry about the one after that. Just get through this one. And he ran his whole life like that. He used to say, there must be a way. And he'd say one wave at a time. And he would say, I think I told you this last time we talked, if you don't know what to do, don't do anything. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And that is huge. And it sounds weird, but he meant, you truly don't know what to do. You've just kept thinking about it, and you don't know what to do. It means you shouldn't do it. Whatever you were about to do, this way or that way, don't do it, because you don't know enough and you're going to screw up bad. So it means you need to go back, and there's more information here you have not gotten yet. There's pieces of the puzzle that are going to fall in, and you need to go get them. And so you go back to the board, you do more due diligence, and you try to find out what's the missing part. And then there comes a time when some things just fall in and you get a different feeling in your head. You're not 1,000% sure you're going to be doing the right thing, but it's more like a normal decision where you go, it's not life or death. I think this is going to be okay. And then he said, if you go through all of that and you make that decision and it doesn't turn out the way you expected, don't say it was wrong. Don't say it was bad, because you don't know. You don't know. You were meant to be there because you did everything you could to adjust the boat. But the wave gets you where you're going to go in the channel, right? And you're meant to be there. That's where you got to go. So now you're there. Don't apologize. Just go through it 100%. You're going to learn from this regardless, even if it's not what you thought it was going to be. And you know that. I'm sure there are times all of us have said, I don't want to go to that stupid party, or I don't want to have to take that class, or get on a plane and go. But something happens in the process of that thing you didn't want to do that actually becomes a good thing and leads you to something even better. So we don't know what anything is for. We don't know what anything is for.
This is where we're going to end today's conversation with Lucie Arnaz. Next week on The Raji Show, I will bring you part 2 of this conversation. And before we go today, I want to reiterate what she said about one wave at a time. She talked about how when things overwhelm us, let's do it Desi's way. Let's go one wave at a time. Let's go one issue, one problem, one conflict at a time. You don't have to do everything all at once. Just take it one thing at a time. Go and focus on one thing today. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next week on The Raji Ahsan Show.